What do you do when the enemy's most dangerous weapons are not out at sea, but hidden inside the coastline itself? What if the biggest threat in the Persian Gulf is not the warship you can track, but the small attack force waiting inside a mountain for the perfect moment to strike? Before we go any further, do me one favor. If you like clear war breakdowns without empty hype, hit like, subscribe, and share this video with one person who wants the real story, not just the loud version. Most people picture naval warfare in a very simple way. They imagine giant ships, giant missiles, giant explosions, and one side winning because it has better hardware. That image feels powerful, but it leaves out something important. In the real world, especially in narrow waters like the Persian Gulf, size is not everything. Sometimes the most dangerous tool is the one that can appear fast, hit hard enough, create panic, and disappear before a larger force can react properly. That is exactly why this story matters. Because along Iran's southern coast, the fight is not just about ships in open water. It is about hidden launch points, hardened coastal positions, and a military strategy built around survival, surprise, and disruption. And if the United States has really intensified pressure on those coastal hideouts, then this is not just another strike story. It is a story about attacking the logic behind one of Iran's most important military advantages. To understand that, we need to slow down and ask a better question than most headlines do. Not, was something hit? Not, did explosions happen? Not, did one side look dominant for a day? The better question is this: what kind of system was actually targeted? Because Iran's coastal hideouts are not just random caves with boats inside them, they are part of a much bigger idea. Over many years, Iran developed a way of thinking about war that accepts one basic reality. It cannot match the United States ship for ship, plane for plane, or base for base. So instead of trying to build a mirror image of American power, it built something else. It built friction. It built a way to make stronger enemies slow down, spend more money, accept more risk, and operate with less confidence. It built an approach designed to survive the first strike, survive the second strike, and still keep enough hidden capability alive to threaten the Strait of Hormuz and everything moving through it. That is where these hideouts become so important. A speedboat in open water is vulnerable. It can be tracked, it can be targeted, it can be destroyed. But a speedboat hidden inside rock, near fuel, near ammunition, near coastal missile support, near surveillance teams, and close to a launch route is something very different. It is not just a boat anymore. It is part of an ambush system. And that system is built for one job. Wait, watch, launch fast, create chaos, disappear, repeat. That is what makes this so serious. People sometimes hear the words fast attack boats and think of something small, almost minor. But in the right environment, small does not mean harmless. In the Strait of Hormuz, small can be deadly. That waterway is one of the most sensitive shipping routes on Earth. It is narrow, it is busy. It matters to global energy markets. It matters to trade. It matters to insurance rates. It matters to military planning. If a force can threaten traffic there, even for a short time, the effects travel far beyond the coastline. That is why Iran's strategy has never been about winning a clean, traditional naval battle. It has been about making the region feel unsafe enough that every ship, every commander, and every government has to think twice. And when you mix small boats with hidden coastal infrastructure, that strategy gets much stronger. Imagine rugged shoreline. Imagine cliffs. Imagine tunnel mouths cut into rock. Imagine protected inlets. Imagine maintenance teams deeper inside. Imagine boats ready to move within minutes. Imagine nearby missile batteries. Imagine coastal observers feeding information into the system. Imagine a target that is not one object, but a web of support, concealment, timing, and coordination. That is what makes these hideouts so difficult to deal with. The problem is not simply destroying a boat. The problem is breaking the network that allows the boat to matter. And that is a much harder mission, because a hidden military network is not defeated the same way a visible one is. If you destroy a warship in port, the effect is obvious. If you destroy a runway, the effect is obvious. But when you strike a hardened coastal system, surface damage does not always tell the full story. You may hit an entrance, but not the chamber behind it. You may hit support buildings, but not the boats deeper inside. You may damage a launch area, but not the backup route. You may destroy visible facilities, while the hidden part of the system keeps breathing. That is why words like wiped out can be so misleading. In a war like this, the real question is not whether there was a strike. The real question is whether the strike created lasting military effect. Did it blind the system? Did it slow launch times? Did it destroy fuel? Did it damage command and control? Did it ruin maintenance capacity? Did it reduce surveillance coverage? Did it force assets to move? Did it expose new positions? Did it shrink the number of safe launch options? Those are the questions that matter. Because even if a tunnel still exists, it may be far less useful than it was before. And in modern conflict, reduced usefulness can be just as important as physical destruction. That sounds less dramatic, but it is more honest. And honesty matters here. because Iran designed these systems for exactly this kind of pressure. The whole idea was to avoid putting too much value into large, expensive naval assets that could be spotted and destroyed early in a major conflict. Instead, the focus shifted towards smaller, cheaper, faster, and more flexible tools. Tools that could hide, tools that could swarm, tools that could threaten shipping lanes without needing a traditional blue water navy. This is asymmetric warfare in its purest form. A weaker military power looks at a stronger one and says, "Fine, I will not fight your preferred battle. I will make you fight mine." That is what Iran's coastal doctrine tries to do. It does not try to prove equal strength. It tries to create enough danger, enough uncertainty, and enough disruption that superior strength becomes harder to use cleanly. And that is why these coastal hideouts are such a smart idea on paper. They protect survivability, they protect surprise, they protect launch timing. They help preserve the ability to swarm. They turn geography into armor. They let a lower-cost force stay relevant against a much richer enemy. That is not accidental. That is design. Iran's southern coastline gives this design real advantages. It is not a simple flat shore with neat rows of exposed infrastructure. It is broken, rugged, irregular, and full of places where movement can be concealed. Add islands, narrow channels, civilian traffic, and the economic weight of the strait itself, and you get a battlefield where even limited surviving capabilities can keep everyone tense. That tension is part of the weapon. A naval force does not need to sink every ship to have strategic impact. Sometimes it only needs to make shipping more expensive, routing more cautious, escort requirements heavier, and political leaders more nervous. In that kind of environment, a hidden coastal force becomes more than a tactical tool. It becomes a pressure point on the global economy. And that is why any serious U.S. move against these hideouts matters so much. Because it suggests the mission is not just about punishing visible targets, it is about degrading the hidden engine of disruption itself. Now, let's talk about why that mission is so hard. First, detection is a constant challenge. People sometimes talk about modern surveillance as if it is magical. It is powerful, yes, but it is not magic. A small boat under rock cover is not the same as a destroyer in open water. Tunnel entrances can be disguised. Movement can happen at odd hours. Support activity can blend into ordinary coastal life. Even if intelligence points to a general location, knowing exactly what is inside at a given moment is much harder. Second, hardened positions change the entire problem. A warehouse and a chamber inside a mountain are not the same category of target. And once rock becomes part of the defense, bombs have to do more than hit the surface. They have to reach meaningful depth, or collapse something that truly matters. And even then, one entrance being damaged may not end operations if there are alternate routes, internal sections, or backup facilities. Third, redundancy is the hidden strength of systems like this. Smart military planners do not assume every part of the network will survive. They assume some of it will not. So they spread risk. Multiple sites, multiple launch points, multiple support nodes, multiple ways to keep at least part of the force alive. That means a strike campaign has to be persistent, not just powerful. Fourth, the coastline is not an empty chessboard. Military sites can sit near workers, drivers, fishing crews, telecom lines, roads, port activity, and ordinary communities. That raises the complexity of every operation. Even when the military target is clear, the wider environment is not simple. And fifth, time works differently for both sides. The stronger force usually wants visible results. The weaker force often wants endurance. The stronger force wants to reduce danger fast. The weaker force wants to prove it can keep danger alive. That is what makes this more than just a military contest. It becomes a contest of patience, perception, and uncertainty. And that brings us to the central tension of the whole story. Can overwhelming air and naval power actually neutralize a hidden, layered coastal threat without getting trapped in a long campaign of repeated strikes and incomplete certainty? That is the real issue. Because history keeps showing the same pattern. A powerful military can dominate the sky and still spend months hunting what survives under rock, inside cities, near coastlines, or among dispersed support networks. It can win every open fight and still struggle against what refuses to stand in the open. That does not mean the stronger force is failing. It means the problem itself was designed to resist quick, clean solutions. So when people say the U.S. military did something insane to Iran's coastal hideouts, the smartest way to hear that is not as proof of instant victory. It is as a sign that the campaign may be focusing on the most stubborn part of Iran's coastal defense model. And if that is true, then the goal may be broader than blowing open tunnels. Every strike, every warning shot, every public threat from political leaders pushes the situation one step closer to the edge. And the problem with edges is that they are very easy to fall off of. It only takes one miscalculation, one radar operator misinterpreting a signal, one commander pushing a button they shouldn't, one rogue unit taking matters into their own hands. That is all it takes to turn a managed conflict into a full-scale regional war. And once that happens, the strategy of restraint will be out the window. It will be replaced by the raw, brutal reality of survival. If you have stayed with me this far, you are clearly one of the few who values truth over the noise. We are peeling back layers that most people don't even know exist. But I want to do something different right now. I want to offer you a way to support this investigation directly. If this level of, dare I say, almost obsessive commitment to getting the story right, to looking at the maps, the logistics, the history, and the human cost, is something that adds value to your life, consider checking out the link in the description. There, you can find a way to help us keep these deep dives alive. No fluff, no panic, just the cold, hard, fascinating truth of how our world works. It allows us to keep digging into these complex stories without having to compromise on depth or integrity. Now, let's talk about where this is going. The question isn't whether or not Kharg Island is a target. We know it is. The question is what the trigger will be. What is the one thing that changes the calculus? Maybe it's a major, undeniable hit on a civilian ship. Maybe it's a direct, lethal strike on U.S. personnel. Maybe it's a global oil price crisis that forces Washington's hand. Whatever the catalyst, we are living in a countdown. The current status quo is unsustainable. You cannot keep threatening to destroy the most important piece of infrastructure in a country without, eventually, being forced to either act or lose all credibility. And credibility is the currency of power. If the U.S. stops being seen as a threat, the leverage disappears. If they continue to threaten and fail to act, the deterrent value degrades. It is a tightrope walk, and the rope is fraying. The danger of this current environment is that it encourages brinksmanship. It encourages both sides to push as hard as they can, assuming the other side will blink first. But what happens if neither side blinks? What happens when two immovable objects meet? We are seeing that play out in real time. We are seeing the U.S. moving assets, reinforcing positions, making public statements that box them into corners. We are seeing Iran doubling down, fortifying, issuing their own threats, and betting that the U.S. doesn't have the stomach for the long-term cost of a full occupation. It is a high-stakes poker game where both players have shown their hands and are now just waiting to see who is bluffing. And the scary part is, in this game, the losing hand doesn't just lose money. It loses lives. It loses economies. And it potentially triggers a collapse that no one is prepared for. When you look at history, this kind of situation almost always ends in one of two ways. Either there is a grand negotiation, a sudden de-escalation where both sides find a face-saving way to walk back from the precipice, or there is a massive explosion, a direct, violent, and messy conflict that changes the map forever. And right now, we see very little evidence of the former. The rhetoric is hardening. The positions are being entrenched. The diplomacy, if it exists, is happening in the shadows, and it is not producing results. This suggests that we are sliding, perhaps inevitably, toward a moment of truth, a moment where the restraint will break, and the bunker busters will do exactly what they were designed to do. But think about the silence. That profound, heavy silence after the sirens stop. The moment when the smoke clears over Kharg Island, and the world realizes that the lever has been pulled. That is the moment the world changes. We have become so accustomed to the idea that the U.S. can manage any crisis, can contain any conflict, can keep the world's economy humming along, that we forget the sheer fragility of that arrangement. We assume that the status quo is the natural state of things. It isn't. The status quo is a delicate creation, maintained by constant effort, constant restraint, and constant calculation. And it only takes one mistake to shatter it. We need to pay attention to the details, the ship movements, the satellite imagery, the subtle shifts in the tone of the rhetoric coming out of the Pentagon and the White House. These are the indicators. These are the things that tell us whether we are moving toward a resolution or toward the cliff's edge. Most people will see the headlines, the explosions, the fires, the dramatic claims, and they will react to the emotion. But you now understand the machinery beneath those headlines. You understand why the island is a tactical nightmare, why the economic stakes are so high, and why the restraint is so purposeful. You have the context. You have the understanding, and that makes you a witness to history in a way that most people will never be. As we look at the future of this conflict, remember that the most important battles are often the ones that don't happen. The deterrent effect of a weapon, of a strategy, of a policy, is something you cannot see. You only see it when it fails. And every day that Kharg Island remains standing, every day that the oil keeps flowing despite the military pressure, is a testament to the fact that the deterrent is still working. But every day that passes is also a day where that deterrent is tested, where the cost of maintaining it rises, and where the risk of failure increases. We are watching a slow-motion collision. We are watching the limits of power be tested. The final piece of the puzzle is the realization that this isn't just about the United States and Iran. It is about the world. It is about the global order. It is about whether we have the collective wisdom to manage our conflicts without destroying the very infrastructure that sustains our modern life. It is a test of our maturity as a civilization. Can we handle our differences without resorting to the ultimate violence? Can we navigate the complex, dangerous waters of international relations without capsizing the boat? The story of Kharg Island is the story of that struggle. It is the story of our time. And whether it ends in a fiery disaster or quiet resolution, it will be the defining story of this era. Thank you for embarking on this deep, exhaustive journey with me. This wasn't just a breakdown of a military strike. It was an attempt to understand the tectonic forces shifting beneath the surface of our world. Kharg Island is more than a target. It is a mirror reflecting our own anxieties, our own dependencies, and our own dangerous reliance on a system that is held together by little more than willpower and the fear of the alternative. If this analysis has shifted your perspective, if it has given you a new way to look at the news that floods your screen every single day, then I have done my job. I want you to walk away from this video with a sense of clarity, not just about the what, but about the why. Because in a world of endless noise, the most powerful thing you can possess is an understanding of the mechanics behind the chaos. This is a story that is not over. It is evolving. It is shifting. And there will be more updates, more revelations, and more moments where the balance of power teeters on the edge. I hope you will be here for those moments because we are going to continue to track this story with the same level of care, the same commitment to the facts, and the same refusal to get swept up in the hysteria that dominates so much of the discourse. The next time you see a headline about the Middle East, about oil, about strikes, I want you to remember what you learned here today. I want you to look past the clickbait and see the strategy, the restraint, and the high-stakes game that is being played out on that tiny, crucial, and terrifying island. Before we wrap this up, take a moment to really think about the question I asked earlier. If you had to bet, based on everything we've broken down, the economic realities, the military constraints, the political pressure, do you think we are headed toward a permanent state of managed, restrained conflict? Or is the big explosion inevitable? The comment section is a place for us to gather our thoughts, to debate, and to refine our understanding. I read them. I value the intelligence of this community. Share your take. Let's see where the collective wisdom of this audience lands. We are, all of us, observers of a history that is being written in real time. It is a privilege to walk through these complex, difficult, and essential topics with you. Keep questioning, keep looking deeper, and never assume that the headlines are the whole story. There is always more. There is always a layer beneath the one you see. And as long as you keep looking, as long as you keep thinking, you will never be lost in the noise. Stay sharp, stay curious, and I will see you in the next one.